If you've ever wondered what goes into the cost of a lifestyle photography shoot, I've just finished a really informative blog. And so we're talking about if you're a high-end brand or you're just getting started, understanding the costs can be crucial to your budget. Obviously, if you do this all the time, you already know this, but maybe it'd be good to compare and see how we do it. But if you're just getting started, understanding what goes into a lifestyle shoot is super important. And really high level, what is a lifestyle shoot? Typically, we describe this as anything that brings in use case elements or talent to showcase your product, how it's used, where it's used, etc. Now, I've broken this down into, 10 different categories. Obviously, there are many more when you get into it even further, but this is definitely a good baseline and where I wanted to start. So we talk about the photographer fee, the location cost, the talent fees, if you're using a stylist, if you need additional crew, if you're budgeting for wardrobe, for props, if it is going to be for ads and it's more high end, if you need to do photo retouching, also usage rights, everybody's favorite topic, and then insurance costs, which is something you might not think about, but it is very important as well. When it comes to the photographer fee, on the low end, we see people who will do full day shoots for $500 to $750. This is typically someone who doesn't have a ton of experience with high-end campaign branded stuff, but are very talented. They usually come from a family and wedding background. They can take wonderful portraits. Don't underestimate them. Just know that there will be some limitations if you're doing super custom stuff. Now, on the high end, you can get photographers that charge $1,500 to $2,500. We've called it kind of 2K as a good average to keep in mind if you're doing some branded content. Note that some of the big dogs, people who shoot for Coca-Cola, for Nike, we've seen them charge as much as $20,000 for a day. As far as locations go, this is super interesting. In the beginning of my career, I've knocked on doors, gone to gyms, found places downtown that had cool rooftops and been like, hey, can I please shoot at your space? Here's $100, here's $50. We'll, send you the photos, whatever. So if you're really willing to roll up your sleeves, you can get this done for low to no cost. If you want to do this by the book and you are going through a location scout or a website like Peerspace or using a company like my other one, Influence Studios, you can expect to pay $1,000 to $3,000 a day for a location. A lot of these don't want to do shorter rentals, so minimum half day, most likely full day. Occasionally on Peerspace or Gigster, you can find places that will do hourly with a 2 to 3 hour minimum for as low as $75 an hour. And so let's say low end here is $500. You've paid a few people off in your local community to use their rooftop, to use their gym, to use their pool, whatever. And on the high end, $3,000 is a pretty good budget for location for a day. Moving on to talent, the range here again is pretty massive. If you're using what we'll call a friends and family deck, so people you know, people you found on Instagram, people who are close to the brand, kind of ambassadors and things like that, you can do $50 to $100 an hour, and they usually don't have minimums, and they're not super particular about buyout rights. If you have a bigger shoot, you need a custom look, you need specific demographics for your talent, you need casting, you need fitting, you need demos, all these things. We recommend going through an agency, and you're going to look to pay $100 to $200 an hour with a 20% fee for the agency tacked on top of that, and they're usually looking for a 3 to 4 hour minimum. So on the low end, talent can be $600. On the high end, it can get close to $6,000. That's based on us recommending, 4 talent per day, a minimum of 2 hours each, a maximum of 8 hours. As far as a stylist goes, some of these photographers who are more hustlers, they will do literally everything. They'll style, they'll produce, they'll direct. They're insanely rare. They should be coveted, treated wonderfully, and they'll include that in their fee. And so you might get away with kind of photographer / stylist / director. Treat them very well. They are special people. If you're booking a stylist specifically for the shoot, you need soft goods. Let's say you're shooting bedding or pillows or something like that, or clothing, apparel, or a CPG product, a beverage or something like that. You need a specific stylist for soft goods or for product, and even wardrobe if you're going to be doing a lot of apparel on the talent. Those stylists typically charge between $900 and $1,250 a day. And then for small to medium scale stuff, you can often find a stylist who will do both prop and wardrobe styling. When you get into the higher end shoots, you're going to need to hire a stylist for each of those positions, and then often each of them will need their own assistant. So low end here, maybe $500, someone styling, just getting started, or a photographer adding on to their fee to do it themselves. High end, maybe $2,500, because you want to keep in mind that for every day that you're shooting, a high-end stylist will usually charge you a day of prep work, and sometimes some return shopping fees as well. And then as far as additional crew goes, we have it here that, again, our scrappy folks who are doing the low budget, content for brands who are just getting started, who need something, now. If you shoot at an outdoor location and you're working with natural light, this is very common. This is what you're going to see 95% of all photographers be comfortable with. You won't need much additional crew. Maybe your photographer will want an assistant, and then you as the client would have to be quite hands-on here to help them out with styling, with ordering lunch, with running around props, all these different things. For larger productions, additional crew, especially when you need custom lighting, custom styling, all these things, you'll definitely want to bring in a gaffer to control the light. A grip is usually nice, especially if you're moving locations. A photo assistant or a DIT is super helpful, and then a PA. Another thing to consider is hair and makeup. We're seeing more and more brands go with the talent coming hair and makeup ready because it saves some cost, and people are generally the best at doing makeup themselves, especially for a natural look, especially if this is just on social and not for broadcast or for billboard. So on the low end here for additional crew, you might look at $250 to $500 for an assistant. On the high end, you could get upwards of $4 to $5K pretty easily. Moving on to wardrobe, there are situations where you can just provide a style guide in your deck and have the talent come with options. Ideally, they'll send you photos prior to the shoot so you can have some say in the selection. Then they'll come to set ready to go, and you'll style them, get them steamed, get them fitted, and do everything there. It's not perfect, but for digital, for web, for social, it works pretty well. On the other side of things, again, back to that customization, back for brands that have specific guidelines that have to be met all the time, you're gonna need to do a wardrobe shop. The kind of dirty industry secret here is we all return pretty much everything we buy. So you don't actually have to have a wardrobe budget per se, because 99% of the items are going to get returned. What we do advise is setting aside some budget for non-returnables, things that can't be taken back after they're worn, and then just keeping in mind that you will have some additional cost to your stylist for the shopping and for the returns, but it's much, much, much more affordable than buying the wardrobe outright. Another high-end type situation that you might run into is you can work out deals with clothing stores, or even local, really high-end curated vintage will basically lease you the wardrobe for the shoot for a restocking fee, maybe 15% of the retail value. This is really cool if you want something custom and unique and not big box. So low end here, maybe $250 for non-returnables, plus whatever your stylist is charging you for the shop. And then on the high end side here, you could aim for $3,500, maybe $4K for custom wardrobing. Props are gonna follow the same rules as wardrobe. A lot of people will order things online with the intent of returning them. You can also do rental houses, which are just gonna be a one-time fee, and then you send those props back. So you don't have to pay full price pretty much. We often like to set a budget for non-returnables. That gives our stylist or creative director some freedom to order things that are custom or get some backdrops that we might want to use for future shoots, things that we can build back to the client but also keep in our own inventory. And so maybe on the low end you can have a $500 budget for non-returnables, and on the higher end, if you need some custom props or someone to come in and build a set or do some alterations to the props that you do buy, like spray painting them, you could easily spend $3,500 on a production in props. For photo retouching, for small scale shoots, normally the photographer will cover this in their fee. If not, they'll have a pretty minimal hourly fee for post. Additionally, you can use freelancers via websites like Upwork, and the range on Upwork is crazy low, from $10 all the way up to maybe $100 an hour. And we'd estimate a full day lifestyle shoot can be edited by one of these professionals in 4 to 8 hours. That's basic retouching, color correcting, adding a little bit of punch, skin smoothing, things like that. If you're producing content on the high end though, that's going to be definitely used for ads. The brand depends on it. We couldn't recommend higher partnering with retouching agencies that specialize in this type of high-end work. And this is going to cost anywhere from $150 to $250 an image. They will color correct, do high pass filters, punch everything up, make the lines perfect, remove blemishes, straighten out fabrics, you name it, they make it look totally different. If you get into compositing and changing background colors, that's when you get higher into that $250 per image range. And assuming we have 20 selects for a one-day shoot, this can add up pretty quickly. So low end, Upwork, you want to use someone that charges next to nothing, you can get $150. They'll do good basic work. High end, you could spend $4,500 having your images retouched. Now on to our favorite topic, usage rights. So this only becomes a huge deal when you work with products that are being sold online, and they want to protect themselves. At the same time, talent, photographers, creative agencies, they want their piece of the pie. And so essentially, when you create content, the content needs to acquire rights for its usage and distribution. So if it's going to be passively sitting on a website and social media versus if it's going to be streaming on Hulu or broadcast commercial or printed on packaging or a billboard, etc. All of these things have to be considered. So the usage needs to be approved by the talent, by the creative agency, by everyone involved. And a time limit is usually assigned, 1 year, 2 year, perpetuity, etc. If you're using talent that isn't agency represented, you can do buyouts for like $500. If you are going through agencies, these can get up to as much as $3,000 per talent. One thing to know, we don't really get into this game too much, because if we're doing ads, the production's already going to cost so much more, and we're going to make sure we charge what we deserve for that work. So we don't add extra fees there, but most people do. And then the last thing we're going to cover are insurance costs. This is something that most agencies, production studios are going to have built in. We have a monthly policy that is general liability plus workers' comp. So if anything happens on our productions, we have coverage. Our studio partner also has their own insurance policy that covers everything to take place during a photo shoot. If it's a small shoot or you don't feel like carrying a monthly premium, you can use sites like Full Frame and you can buy insurance for the day. It can be as low as $50. There's all types of different services for events, for weddings and things like that that will cover you. Highly recommend here. So low end $50, high end I think we pay $400 a month for our total policy. And then honorable mention, equipment rentals. On the low end, your photographer, everyone, they're going to kind of come with what they need. This isn't even a consideration, but when you get into higher end stuff, especially studio rentals, they're going to basically force you to rent from their inventory. So all the grip equipment, all the lighting, oftentimes camera lenses and things like that will be included. So you could drop $10K here without blinking. Low end summary for a full day shoot. If you're super scrappy, really DIY style, you really don't mind doing a lot of work on your end to set up the photographer, you could spend as little as $5K and still get reasonable assets. On the high end, everything we just outlined comes out to around $32,000. That might sound crazy if you're a casual brand, but that's not even that big of a deal. Again, some of these big brands will spend $20K on a photographer alone, so their daily spend is astronomical, easy 6 figures, sometimes 7 if you're getting into big distribution. In terms of our pricing, just so you know for context where we land, and so we're a boutique agency in the sense of we're a smaller team, but we produce pretty high-end content. We don't go after the biggest clients like Apple, Nike, and the likes, because honestly, they're a colossal pain to work with. So we work with companies with like 10 to 100 million in annual revenue. Generally, we do have some clients that are in the billions and very large and very international. But the bulk of our clients are in that 10 to 100 mil. And so we charge 15 to 20K for a day production, and that would include all the planning, all the shooting, all the editing. It's kind of full service, turnkey, casting, talent, wardrobe, you name it. But if we're doing ads, something more high end, then we'll get into the 30K range. It just depends on what the shoot needs. Bringing that all together, I know that's a ton of information. Just understand what level of quality you need and what the associated costs are going to be. You can't expect to pay $5,000 for a whole shoot and have something that's going to compete with a Nike. You have to be reasonable and fair, and if you're educated and you ask the right questions, you can find great partners for great prices and produce content that helps your brand move forward. If you have any more questions, drop a comment below, shoot me an email, text, whatever, wherever you send it, I'm going to get it on every device anyway. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.